Hey So fam, on today's video I'm going to be talking about hacks, tips, tricks that help you increase your sewing efficiency. And if you've sewn for any amount of time, you know that you have to get things fast, get things moving so that you can get on to the next beautiful project you want to create. And as a result of me doing these hacks, I have increased my sewing efficiency so much, you guys. And I said so in my video for my New Year resolutions, or resolutions for my sewing for the New Year. So if you're interested, do stay tuned. This is the Chinanja Sewing Space. If you didn't know that already, why didn't you know that? Where you learn to sew and style the wardrobe of your dreams. And without further ado, let's get into the video. And I will be looking at my notes just in case I keep looking down and stuff. And yeah, let me stop rambling. So, tip, hack number one for sewing efficiency is to have a basic pattern. And like this goes like even if you sew with commercial patterns, if you're making your own patterns, which is what I do, but it's good to have a basic pattern that you can base your other patterns off of, right? Like if you see a style, you just get your basic pattern and modify it, which is what we do on the channel. But even if you have you use commercial sewing patterns, if you have your basic pattern or you have a tried and true pattern, you can use those measurements as a template for the other pattern. Because like I'm not really familiar with commercial patterns, but I know that sometimes their measurements might be off. You just know that, okay, I like, if it's a loose fitting garment, if I want like ease, a certain amount of ease on this garment, this is what I do. You get your tried and true pattern and put it on the new pattern that you're trying to make. Just, it makes things faster. Trust me, you guys, that you'll be so efficient. You'll be knocking out patterns and sewing out things in no time. Okay, all right. Sewing hack number two for efficiency is to make a muslin. Whew. Also, I also talked about this on these are also part of my sewing resolutions for 2021. But making a muslin, especially if it's a pattern you haven't made before, if it has intricate details and stuff, like find out. And this is the great thing about sewing, you guys, you find out your style quickly. Find out where if the pattern has a yoke, you make a muslin so that you know where you want that yoke to hit you. If it has like frills coming off, how, even if it has like curves, if you make a muslin, you know where your waistline is, where your true waistline is, and you can, put that curve directly in that waistline place that is unique to you and to your body shape and body size. Okay, now sewing hack, tip, whatever you call it, number three is to batch cut sometimes. Okay, like everybody goes on about this batch cutting stuff, but if you're so slow, and it doesn't work for me is what I'm trying to say, but it works for most people, which is why it's on this list. Okay, so basically batch cutting is especially if you have like a pattern that you want to make with 2 or 3 different fabrics, you just cut everything at once, like sew everything at once. If I batch processing everything at once cuts down wasted time. The bad thing about batch cutting is if you don't sew them up at the same time or quickly enough, you find that, especially someone like me, what I found out was happening was I'd find another shiny project and move on, and by the time I got back to the other patterns that I'd first cut the patterns that I'd batch cut initially, guys, I'd be out of shape. I'd have added 1 or 2 inches, lost a couple of inches, so it was kind of hectic. So I don't batch cut a lot at the same time. I it's not something I do really, but it helps so many people, so I thought I'd put it in the list. Okay, now sewing tip, hack for efficiency number 4 is to try to cut all your pieces for a project at once. Now this is what I do in lieu of batch cutting, right? Like if I'm sewing something, like I'm sewing a dress, I'll cut out all the, before what I used to do was I'll cut out the front borders, cut out the back borders, leave out the sleeve. No. Okay, what I do now is I cut out everything, the front borders, the back borders, the sleeves. You know, if it has a belt, I'll cut that. If it has a frill going on, I'll cut all that out in the beginning. Okay, just so that I know that I'm done with cutting for that pattern. You know, then I know that what's left is the sewing. Ironically though, the cutting is like my favorite part of sewing now, which is why I'm sure I like pattern drafting so much. You know. Now, sewing tip hack efficiency number 5. You need to mark and label your pieces, because guys, trust me, I've been there. You think this is the front of the sleeve, this is the back of the sleeve. You're wrong. Then next thing, you sew things up, you know, differently, and you try and you know, wear it and it feels funny because you have sewn the back of the sleeve to the front of the sleeve. Or sometimes, you know, I've had this where I was making a skirt and I end up sewing the bottom of the skirt to the top, you know, change the bottom of the skirt to the waistline, and then your skirt fits you funny and you're wondering what. So do mark, label everything: front of the sleeve, back of the sleeve, top of the skirt, bottom of the skirt, center of the skirt. You know, all those things make it so that when you're sewing, it's easy. You just put things. You're not there trying to figure out again, going back to your pattern and trying to find out what is what. Okay, it really helps. It seems like a small thing, but it goes a long way to help. Okay, sewing tip hack. I don't know what number this is. I'm just going to be calling them without the numbers. Okay, test your stitches, your tension, and anything you want to do on your pattern, on your fabric, sorry. So with the advancement in fabrics, types of fabrics, you know, thickness of fabrics, you need to run a test. You know, whatever fabric you're going to sew, run a test, find out what stitch length you like for that fabric. You know, if you're going to be doing top stitching, test out your top stitching. You know, if you don't have an overlocker, you know, test out your zigzag, you know, the kind of overlocking stitch you want to use on your domestic sewing machine. You know, write this all out in your book where you put down everything you're going to sew, which takes me to the next tip, right, which is write everything down. Okay, so a lot of sites have templates for your sewing. Okay, so what you do is you cut out your piece of fabric, put it on the template, you know, you have a rough sketch of your design. You write out the particular measurements you're using for that project, for that particular project, and you just, like, everything, you write it down there. You know, write out the stitch length you're using, write out the color of thread, the needle, the size of the needle, everything, so that, because sometimes you might be switching out for another project, you get, and you might have to change your thread, change everything, so that when you go back to that, you know where you were and you can start from where you stopped, instead of like guessing, did I use the stitch length, did I not use the stitch length. Just when you have everything written down in your template, it makes you more efficient. Okay, next sewing tip or hack is to cut your lining after getting the fit for your pattern. This saves you so much time. Okay, and the temptation is, like, when we say batch cutting, you know, cut everything about your project first. I actually don't cut out my lining pieces then, because, you know, like when you test fit the garments from your muslin or whatever, you know, you find out that you need to tuck in a bit here, tuck in a bit there, and you don't want to be making the same mistakes you made on your pattern on your lining. There's really no need to do that. So my advice for efficiency, so that you can bang out projects very fast, is to cut out your lining afterwards. After you've achieved the fit you want for that particular garment, you go on, take the garment, you know, transfer everything to the lining and cut out. Okay, guys. Next sewing tip or hack for efficiency is even I had problems with this one. Embrace hand stitching in some cases, because if you're making something like a waistband, there's that temptation to just pin and pin and pin, or just decide to wing it. It never, trust me, it never ever comes out well. And you're going to end up taking out your stitches, sewing things back on again, etc., etc. It's a nightmare, trust me. So just get out your needle, get out a contrasting color thread, and just hand stitch, especially if it's a waistband. I do this for all my waistbands now, like I don't even play anymore. Just hand stitch everything down so that when you're sewing, you can, especially if you're like stitching in a ditch, everything is in place so that you can sew whatever it is you want to sew. Okay. Next tip or hack for efficient sewing: try and sew for at least an hour a day. Well, this is for me. You can make it whatever you want. 30 minutes, 1 hour, even 15 minutes. I don't care. If you have kids, like if you can grab just 15 minutes in a day. And this is how I actually ended up sewing so much last year. Like I just made up my mind, at least do something sewing wise, or like dig into that project, no matter how little, for a day, every day. And you find out that things just move on. Before you know it, you're done with the project. Okay. So that's it. Carve out time, like 15 minutes, I don't care, just come there, even if it's to sew, even if it's to hem something, to sew a straight line, to join your side seams. Every little thing counts. Okay. Next sewing tip or hack is to have a dedicated space or corner. Now this, I say corner because I have a sewing corner in my house, and having a full room dedicated to sewing is quite a luxury. Yes, I know that, because like I said, I have a sewing corner. But it helps to have things already in place, like there, so that it's easy for you to just slide on into the sewing process, if you get what I mean. So yeah, if it's something that you can do, just anything that gives you less steps to have to set up and organize for sewing. The next sewing tip or hack is to declutter your space. And this is especially true if you have a dedicated sewing room or corner, like a clear space gives you, like room to walk around, sew what you want to sew. It clears your mind, so you're focused on the task at hand. This helps so much, you guys. I particularly do not clear up in projects. I don't know if that makes any sense. I wait till I'm done with one project or two projects if I'm sewing them at the same time, and I declutter then. I clear up everything then. But even if after I cut, there's no need to have papers lying around, tracing papers lying around. You just clear all that, put back rulers where they're supposed to be, simple things. It doesn't have to be like a big purge or big decluttering whole process. I'm not the most organized person in the world, so I feel like I know how it feels to not want to organize your space or anything like that. But just little things here and there, I find help a lot. Putting things away immediately in the home immediately helps a whole lot. Okay. Now, next tip or hack is to quit the pin addiction, you guys. And this is particularly hard or harder for new sewists, because if you're a beginner in sewing, you want everything to match and you're obsessed. You don't really trust yourself that much. I remember when I started, I pinned everything, like every inch, every 1 inch I pinned, but now that I'm an old pro at this thing, I've been doing this for I want to say eight years now. Yeah. Now that I'm 8 years in, I can just like put 1 or 2 pins, like 1 pin at the beginning, 1 pin in the middle of the whole project, and 1 pin at the end, and I'm good to go. I just, let my hand guide everything, and it's yeah, it's easier. But pins create puckers in your project, in the fabric. So I mean, once you catch on to that bit, you learn that you have to like get easy on the pins. And importantly, don't sew over your pins. Do not do that, guys. They're like the misaligned things, just don't do that. It's not worth the stress, trust me. Okay, so next sewing tip or hack for efficient sewing is to transfer your markings faster or immediately. Like, this part of marking things. Find faster ways to transfer your darts, any design lines you have. For the darts, you just pin on one side, flip to the other side, and mark it down. It's pretty easy. But people like, they're not sure of how to transfer markings and stuff, which is quite easy. But doing that, having your markings down every time just helps with more efficient sewing. Okay. Sewing tip or hack for efficiency is to press your fabric before you sew. Like, I can't even tell you guys. Like, if you have a rumpled fabric, you think that, oh, the fabric is just there. This tiny crease in the fabric doesn't mean anything. It means that's like, by the time you iron while you are sewing, it's like an extra 1 or 2 inches. You find your fabric growing, and you're like, how the hell did that happen? How did that happen? So do iron, like, have a very flat fabric before you even cut. I'm serious, you guys. Before you even cut, iron out everything. Then while you are sewing, so iron as you sew, because even while you're sewing, the fabric creases. Maybe you fold and you don't fold properly, but it makes your fabric look nice and put together, and it spurs you on to sew more. This is like a talking head video. Is not really our normal tutorial video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. These are just, I promise you guys, and I know there are a lot of tips or hacks or for efficiency and all that kind of thing. You don't really have to do everything at once. Just find 1 or 2 or 3 that you can do, implement those ones, make them become like a normal process for you for sewing, and trust me, you guys, you're going to be sewing faster and more efficiently. You don't feel like you're running around in circles doing the same thing and not getting anywhere. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. If you stayed to the end, thank you so much. Don't forget to continue sewing and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.